hang in
Dude,
there. It is.
that's Smiley Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smiley Kaufman, and this is The Smiley Show.
All right, Smiley. Here we are.
Hey,
Is that the best intro we've done yet in terms of clean execution?
not bad. Not bad.
Not bad. We'll take not bad for starters. How are you feeling, bud? Late one, huh?
Pretty tired.
Pretty tired.
Pretty tired. I just took my first sip of coffee, so I think I'll kind of work myself into the episode. So,
That's right. That's right.
yeah.
It's like a show and go at the first tee. You know, just take a breakfast bowl and we'll work our way into the round.
Totally fine though. I got enough sleep to be functional today. I already have like the scaries of going back to an airport tomorrow morning, but
You're headed right back out. Obviously, the players this week.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm happy to report I'm back on my juice cleanse grind. So I'm also just cranky this morning.
what do you mean? Like you just you just drink juice?
Yeah, I'm back on that. You know, you get like 6 juices a day, and you kind of spread them out by 2-hour intervals, and that's all you drink.
You don't eat food?
No food.
So you shave a beard and now you're just drinking juice?
Yeah, I'm just trying a lot of different stuff right now. I think I'm starting to warm up on like the stubble look instead of the full beard, but I'm just trying a lot of stuff right now, Smiley. We're just in experimentation mode.
Question, and
Okay.
this might be TMI. So when you just drink juice all day,
Oh yeah.
is that a cleanser type of thing? Like a full body just like are we sounding the alarms in our digestive system? What's going on there?
The digestive system gets very cranky early on, like what's happening here, and it is a system flush, so to speak, metaphorically, literally, all across the board. But it's nice. You lose a few pounds, it cleans you out. I was stunned last time how good I felt. Like I was able to still work out, and I actually felt better than I normally do, which was really telling me something about the general things I'm putting in my body on a regular basis. It was like a little bit of a wake up call. Like, hey, maybe.
So what day is this? You said
This is day 1. I'm one juice in.
I thought we were like on day 6.
One juice in. We did a 3-day last time. We're gonna do a 5-day this time. We'll see.
You're literally a guy who just had a range session and found something. I thought we were so
Yes.
far into this. No. This is so early. Okay.
No, yeah, this is 100% the guy that's like, January 1. Like I'm back on my gym grind. It's like, well, you've been for a day. Let's talk to me in about 3 weeks. So
Man, I'm concerned on day 5. If you need anything from me, it might be a little on the cranky side. So I might have to stay away.
just it's a heads up to everyone involved. I apologize in advance. And at any point in time, I can hit the eject button. If it gets bad, it gets bad. But
Do you inch yourself back into eating real food? Like, do you go from drinking juice to going to eat like a Big Mac, like just because you're so hungry?
So the last time I did it, we try to do a little family tradition here on Friday mornings where I make Walker pancakes and Kaneka sausage, and so that was the dive back in, and it was almost like a reverse cleanse. It was like, what are you? We've only had liquid for 3 days, and now you're feeding me Kaneka sausage. Like what? Two very different ends of the spectrum, so to speak.
Well, pancakes make me so tired.
Yeah. It's a take Walker to school after some pancakes and sausage, drive back, and maybe I just pop back in and take a little 15-30 minute nap before I get the day started.
Have you seen the Nate Bargatze bit on his deal on pancakes?
I have not.
He's like, I love pancakes, but they make me so tired. and he was trying to like make excuses for everything that, for any reason why he would be tired. And his wife's like, do you think it was maybe that loaf of bread you just ate and a bottle of syrup?
Yeah, that was a big wake up call. This is a little bit of a tangent, but on the same topic of like gluten sensitivity, where I was in college and you'd get like a giant pizza from IP3s here in Chapel Hill, and your boys would get a keg of Yingling, and it's like, gee, I wonder why I don't want to go out 2 hours later. It's like, well, you just piled a load of gluten into your body, so maybe it's nap time now, early night.
Do you have gluten sensitivity?
I don't know that I do, but I just feel like that sum of gluten's going to get anybody. That's my theory on that.
Yeah, I have like one of the genes for celiac.
Yes.
So my doc said that the less gluten that you consume, the better your body functions.
I think Novak Djokovic would agree with you. That's kind of his thing.
Sometimes I say too long did not read to the doc, but I do my best.
You got to do it when you got to do it. Look, we all get to dabble in a little bit of gluten, a few pancakes here and there. It's just knowing when the line is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Look, we're happy to have everyone here. We're happy that on the front end we generated some asks for some questions, some Q&A on Instagram. We had a few that were sent in. We have a lot of golf to talk about today. We're going to recap the Arnold Palmer Invitational and sort of a wild flip of what we thought the result was going to be near the end there. And we're going to get to that. We're going to do some players preview, but let me hit you with a few kind of intro questions on the way in before we launch into that. We just, as mentioned, started the week off with the family at Disney. Shelby Withers on Instagram. Favorite thing you did at Disney before the tournament?
Let's see. Man, it was the fireworks and leaving at the end. It was pretty great.
Love that. Okay. We have pro caddy coach.
And honestly, hold on. And beating the crowd. Just the agreement of, hey, we're staying for fireworks, but Fran, we're leaving before the stroller brigade. We have to beat these people to the monorail. It was like a handshake agreement of hey, I'll concede here to watch some of the fireworks, but also we're not going to be last in line for this monorail. Just that was probably hard dad move there.
Yeah, we will go to the basketball game, but we are leaving at the 4-minute media timeout.
That's right.
And then we're going to get home an hour and a half. We stayed to the end, went to Carolina Duke on Saturday, and every game I've gone to this season before that has been with the kids, sometimes even before the 4-minute TV timeout, but no later than that. And we stayed to the end of this game, and it reminded me why I try to beat traffic. It's a tough scene.
Y'all were hanging in there, weren't you?
We were. It was. I think we were up by a point and a half. It was, or maybe it was down 3. It was a close game until about 10 minutes left.
How good is? Wait, did you go?
I did.
How was Cooper Flack? Really good.
Not as impressive as I was hoping for him to be.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I'll say a nice thing about Duke players. Of all the Duke players I've seen live, I think Zion Williamson was better in person than Cooper Flag.
Oh well, that's not a hot take.
I don't think it's that hot, but I just had to put it out there.
I kind of thought you were gonna give me a little more than that.
I was gonna say Kyle Singler was more impressive than Cooper Flag.
Yeah, that was. I wasn't expecting that.
Not as hot. All right, well I'll tell you what, because we're about 10 minutes in here. We have more questions we're gonna save maybe for the end when we get to it, but I think at this point, I think we got to launch right into the just the Arnold Palmer Invitational, the finish on Sunday. Russell Henley, of course, he flips it with that chip in on 16, as your buddy Kiz in the booth said. If that thing doesn't hit the stick, it probably doesn't stay on the green. We're looking at a very different tournament outcome, but it does, of course, go in. And instead of looking to scramble to stay a shot behind Colin Morikawa, he now has a one-shot lead heading into the last 2 holes. But as we kind of like to do on the show, Smiley, you were on the ground the entire week for Golf Channel and NBC, and I think that makes the most sense to retrace the entire week, right? So just starting with Bay Hill conditions, which were the topic throughout, multiple times, the winds, the difficult conditions on Thursday, whether or not the greens were alive. So just kind of take me through. Let's start with Thursday, and I'll start with a little stat I pulled here, which is scoring average by round. The Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all under par, and Thursday, more than 2.5 shots over par. So just take me through the week in terms of how Bay Hill played.
Oh, wow. Well, Thursday was quite ridiculous. We kind of talked about that on the Wednesday one and done picks when we went live. I really felt like that morning was going to be brutal, going to be cold, going to be gusty, going to be windy. And it was. It was really hard. And I was very fortunate to not have been walking in those conditions because it would have been brutal just to even be out there in it. And I felt bad for all the guys that had those morning tee times. And surprisingly, it wasn't as lopsided as I kind of thought it might be. I think guys like really rallied from the morning, players that played in the morning, like Keegan Bradley being a guy we're definitely going to talk about. Morikawa was kind of right at the split. But that Thursday, man, especially considering Wednesday, I mentioned kind of right around that one and done deal that we were expecting to get rain. We got like a 1/10 of an inch. So there was just hardly zero rain. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the golf course was already Sunday, as far as just how the golf course was playing from a firm and fast perspective.
Now, I had a question for you because we're looking at aerial shots of the course, right? Now, you can tell the greens are very crusty, glassy. You have a note in here that says soft fairways, and I know, and we saw that play out. Like Jason Day got a mud ball, I think it was 15 or 16 or something like that. So I know they were soft. But we're looking at aerials where they look like brown in a lot of spots.
Yeah.
What was the sort of contrast there in terms of how they were firm in some spots, but just stayed wet in other spots where you could get a mud ball?
It was unusual. Yeah, like the fairways smelled burnt a lot of places. Like when you were walking in certain spots, you almost could smell how burnt the fairways are. But you're right, there were so many areas that were just kind of soft, and then others that were just rock hard, like hard pan and firm. Really weird. And the golf course played unusual from tee to green. Now the greens were not unusual. They were just dead, pretty much. There was hardly zero grass on these greens. Let me send you a picture. I sent this to...
Oh, let's do some live producing here.
I sent this picture
this
to Solly when Keegan was like 8 under through 11, and he had like Keegan's over. I sent him this picture. I said, "Can you just imagine if the wind blew today?"
Oh my gosh, dude! I mean, well, and that's a perfect segue into the last item I have out here, which is to say that you got sobled. You got sobled, and I say this. With
Wait, what does that even mean? Give me more.
Well, I saw that you'd quote tweeted Jason Sobel's since deleted tweet, and I say this with great love and affection for Jason Sobel, who I used to work with at SiriusXM, produced the show Hitting the Green for a while. I don't know. Here's what I can't figure out with that one, because Sobel was projecting like end of times, 40-mile-per-hour gusts. Like it looked like it was going to be total carnage, and of course it wasn't that. And here's what I can't figure out is we all know this guy. If you play golf anywhere, you got the guy that's got the most optimistic weather app and the guy that's got the most pessimistic, and you just kind of sit in the group chat and you wait for both of them to throw out the forecast, and you can split it somewhere in the middle. Jason Sobel is a golf addict. I mean, this man either talks about golf or he is watching golf or playing it. And so I would expect him to have the optimistic weather app, not the one that's calling for 40-mile-per-hour gusts of wind. I'm not sure what happened there.
Dude, when I saw that after the round, I immediately said, shoot, we're not finishing tomorrow. Because the gusts that he had written out was like close to 30 to 35 miles an hour. Dude, there's no chance on those greens. Zero chance. And I know everybody that watched the tournament felt like, they weren't quite as firm and fast as we expected. Because it literally, the wind was hardly moving. It was at times like 1 mile per hour. Like where I was like, I throw up the grass just to find where it's even coming from.
And this is the picture you sent me here, and I'll try to pull down this lower third here, but you can kind of get a feel for those greens, the way those things were playing.
J-Day made that. He made that putt. It was just outside right. Corey Connors. It was actually the only putt Corey got to the hole. He actually blew it by. He's one on the right.
How about that? Well, there you go. So yeah. So it was no wind, and we looked at the scoring averages by the round. It was reflected in that. But conditions maybe, I guess probably thankfully, no one really wants a Monday finish. So glad it ended the way it did. But yeah, let's talk about Russell a little bit because, we talked a little about the chip in on 16 and what happens if it doesn't hit the pin. But you got to know we were talking about this, as we were prepping for the show, just stuff you saw at the Cognizant from Russell that obviously he was in the mix on Sunday, comes up a little bit short. What'd you see there that was like, hey, he's trending, he could win?
Well, I was really impressed with his ball striking and the way he was going about his business last week. And I really felt like he wasn't being rewarded for hitting really high quality tee shots and iron shots compared to the rest of the field, or at least the guys, maybe even the guys who finished in the top 5 that were spraying a little bit more, getting away with lies in the rough, able to get up and down from around the green. The difference between last week and this week around the greens, night and day, as far as just the quality you had to show around the greens with just the ability to play so many different shots from really terrible lies, where last week it felt like a pitch and putt. It was just so simple around the greens. It felt like Amex.
With that overseed, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It was just not even close to the same week. And so Daniel Berger felt the same way, honestly. Those two guys, I just felt like if it was a normal PGA National, it should have been between those two guys. That's how, from just watching them, and I'm sure there's a couple other guys I'm probably, leaving out, but really impressed with how he was coming into the week.
And we have a comment up here from Robert on YouTube, just noting some of Russell's accomplishments this year, and just looking back at his form. So Russell Henley in the final 2 majors of 2024, the U.S. Open and the Open Championship, top
7th in the world. Jeez.
Top 10s at both of those, finishes 5th at the Open, T4 at the Tour Championship, earns 3 points at the President's Cup. 2 of those were wins as Scottie Scheffler's partner, which was, that was a big question mark heading in. Who's Scottie going to partner with? 4 top 10s already in 2025. 2 of those are top 5s, and one of those is, of course, a signature event win. We have early Ryder Cup discussions to talk about. Robert here has Russell Henley as a lock for Bethpage, but just his trend and form from one of the guys who was always known as a great iron player, amazing ball striker, but to a top 10 player in the world, at least according to the OWGR. How do you look at that ascension and make sense of that? I mean, is it something you always saw coming and you need to kind of have a few things click into place?
Oh, gosh. Did I see it coming? Did I see Russell being a top 10 player of the world? Yeah, his ceiling is 100% a top 5 player in the world. But with Russ, it seemed like his wins early in his career just came really easy to him. And it just seemed like he had this dog and this killer instinct on Sundays that it didn't matter who he was going up against. I even heard a little bit of that on the broadcast. I think Brad mentioned that Rory McIlroy played with Henley at a U.S. Open in the last couple of years, and he just was so impressed of how well he plays hard golf courses. But I go back to the early part of his career, and that his wins just, how hard it is to win on the PGA Tour, how guys talk about it, but to me, it didn't seem like it was crazy difficult when Russell got into contention. It felt like, it was like riding a bike for him. It looked like it was just like a college event that he was playing. It's like, yeah, I'll go make 7 birdies in the back 9, get a hot putter. We haven't seen that at all as far as just what he's capable of doing on a Sunday. He hadn't done that since he was, in his first couple of years when he was winning some PGA Tour events right out of playing on the web.com tour at the time. So from a ceiling perspective, what his game to me is that he hits it right out of the middle of the face, comes out the same window every time, pretty much is a point and shoot type of player, plays very creative, very athletic, very cerebral. So when you kind of combine all things together, jumble them all up, it's like, all right, you can kind of compare him to a Louis Oosthuizen type of player, someone who's just not going to shoot themselves out of the golf tournament. Players that seem to always be at the top page of the leaderboard of a U.S. Open. That's kind of like my comparison for a type of player that he is. Now, can he hit all the shots that, shoot, you can name so many guys, and the shots that Russell, as far as just overall trajectory on how high he hits shots, he doesn't hit it that high. But tell you what he does do. He hits it out of the window. It's dead straight.
Hits fairways, hits greens, and when he's putting well, you can get it done. And it just a little help with a flag stick every once in a while, and there you go. You win a signature.
And I'll say this too. There seems to be a bit of a trend here, and since like the Phoenix Open, so Michael Kim and Russell Henley both go and get chipping lessons from Joe Mayo like in the past month, and both of these guys have. I mean, that chipping obviously, his chipping's been really good lately. Russell, like he's chipped in a couple times, like an event, and then Michael just doesn't make bogeys, so he's getting up and down quite often.
Okay, so this is perfect. This is our next diversion in this show. Back to some comments that were sent in ahead of time. This is a question from Pro Caddy Coach who wants to know about your progress on chipping with the steeper angle of attack. And also, I'll use my platform here to filibuster a little bit because I got some hot tips from Trevor Immelman.
Yeah.
And working on that kind of steep action, sand it up a little bit more, took it out, gave it a little test run on Friday at Hope Valley in some cold weather, dormant Bermuda, coming out of dormancy, and very happy with it. So Joe
Good.
Mayo. The Joe Mayo method. It's permeating in a lot of different places and a lot of good eye tests right now.
Well, for instance, I've used Seekman my whole life, and I think it's just the words, and just as far as just like the angle of attack and steepness and measuring it all, like these are all things that I've always naturally done with a good setup. It's all setup based, like having your chest forward, having the handle higher, being able to getting the club away from the ground and getting your chest up and getting taller. Like all these things are ways in which you can be steep and get the club out of the ground and not dig. So
yeah. That was the one thought that Trevor got that I think can be nerve-wracking for a lot of people is you said standing up, but moving the head forward. If you look at all the great chippers and pitchers of the golf ball, their head's kind of moving forward with it to make sure they get ball first, at impact. And I think that for a lot of people,
you get taller. Yeah.
You do that, a few times. You practice on the range and you blade a few across the green to some guy on the other side of the green, and you say, okay, maybe that's not for me. But once you can kind of get a good feel for that, you're going to stop chunking it, digging it, which nobody likes to do that. So
I still feel like where the confusion might be with all this when you talk about standing closer to it and the handle being a little higher, chest forward. When you get a tight lie behind a bunker to a short-sided shot, that's where that theory, I think it can confuse people a little bit on like what to do, because I don't think people really know exactly how to hit that shot. Personally, the shot that I've always felt like I needed on the tour was not the spinny one. I just needed to be able to hit my landing spot and be able to hit it high. So for me, that was always a shallower feel. For me, like I would get the handle, I would move it way back. Now I'm sure there may be some data that says like you're still getting steep. But to me, I would always have a feeling of that it would be more of an in to out feel. Now that was just me. Like Jordan, he feels like he cuts everything with pitch shots, and that's probably and Scotty too. It's just I always like to try to get it up in the air higher, because I felt like it was make my just dispersion just a little tighter.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the one thing that Joe Mayo says consistently is it's not that, essentially that you can do it a lot of different ways. You can be shallow. It's just the thing he's trying to clear up is steep is not bad. If done correctly, steep is not bad. And
yeah, if done correctly, that's
if done correctly. Yeah,
I was just giving you a scenario where it may not be done correctly.
Steep can be bad if done improperly, but two guys who are not doing steep bad, as you mentioned, Michael Kim and Russell Henley. Let's get back to the man who ends up finishing second. And Smiley, here's my ready. This is my everyone put your tinfoil hats on. Okay, this is reckless speculation. I think the tour is rigged against Colin Morikawa. I think the tour is rigged, and they're trying to against nobody else, just Colin Morikawa. Because I'm looking back, I'm trying to read the tea leaves here. Full Swing season 1. Look, Full Swing, great program, highly entertaining, bring a lot of people to the game. I think we can all soft agree on the fact that the way his episode was set up didn't paint him in the greatest of lights. Okay, so now we've got the smear campaign, the light smear campaign of sorts against Colin, and then just robbed of the 2024 Tour Championship by starting strokes. He should have had a win last year. And then now on Sunday, they use the Space Jam magnet to pull Russell's ball in the hole, and Colin loses the golf tournament. So, Smiley, your comments on the tour being rigged against Colin Morikawa.
Oh, man. God,
I just feel for the guy.
I feel for him. I was out there with him Saturday, and God, it's unbelievable to watch someone have that much control with their irons. It was absurd. Like I
gained 3.5 strokes approach. Unbelievable.
There was one shot he hit. I don't know if you were watching on Saturday on the 9th hole. So Corey Connors at 206 to a right pin, and he doesn't go at right pins, especially with middle irons. He doesn't hit it high enough, so he plays a 6-iron to the middle of the green. And Colin Morikawa was 9 yards closer at 197. There's like 5 miles an hour of wind back into his face. 197, probably need to land something at that 185 is about right. So for most guys, modern guys, young kids, they'd hit a 7-iron. Maybe some guys have been on tour a while. Oh, I'll hold a little 6. I think I got enough control to hold a 6. Colin hits a 5-iron and hits the biggest high floaty slice you've ever seen and lands it 185. His ability to add or take away shot or distances with his long irons is unlike any player. It's like an old school way of playing the game of golf. You know how all of your probably dad and granddad's friends saying, you don't need to learn how to hit an 8-iron like a 7-iron. You need to learn how to hit a 7-iron like an 8-iron. And he can do that with a 6 to an 8. His ability to take distance off by his ability just to cut the golf ball. It's just how much he slices it, basically. And I think when he switched over to a different coach and actually found the proper way to play fades and not do it the way he does it, he was nuking shots. He was hitting shots too well and wasn't able to control hitting it pin high. And that was like his superpower, right? When you think about Colin Morikawa's iron game, he comes up on the TV and he's got a middle iron in his hands. If he doesn't hit it pin high, you're like, something went terribly wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think with him too, I think old school is such a good way to put it, because we were riding to Chapel Hill on Saturday and watching it on a phone in the car over. I was sitting next to my buddy and we were just talking about Colin's distance relative to other players. And so I wonder what his average ball speed is, and looked it up. And I thought, and it might still be wrong. I should be properly fact checked, but I thought
Can
it was.
I guess?
Yes, please.
One
for driver, it's like off the tee ball speed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 171.
170.
Yeah,
it was like 170 half. And so it's
so we round up.
It's a yeah, that's right. We'll round up. You're correct. You win the, or do you not win? What's the game where they have to guess? It's not Wheel of Fortune. It's Price is Right.
Yeah.
You can't go over.
The price is wrong, Bob.
But I mean, for a guy like that to be a top player in the world and be able to do the things you're describing with his irons, like it really requires a degree of craftsmanship and artistry. That's the only way you're going to survive at those levels without the ball speed of the modern player. So it's amazing stuff. There's a comment here. We got a comment on YouTube that's asking, obviously plays phenomenal. Do you think he needs to be more aggressive on Sundays? Now, before I'll tee you up there. Like, I feel like a lot of this is, I watched him hit a lot of drives that hit the fairway, but it was just so firm that then it's running out to spots in the rough where it's just going to be tough to score from there. Like there was one lie he got that was just atrocious, where it was one of the extended caddy conversations we heard with him and JJ, and he's just like trying to chop a 56 degree as long as it'll go, and ends up in a front bunker.
Number 10?
Yeah, 10. I think that's right.
Yeah.
But what do you?
What did he hit off that tee?
It looked like driver, I think. I could be wrong.
It's kind of a debatable play.
Yeah, so maybe club selection. I guess better.
Do you have a 3-shot lead going to the back nine?
At that moment, I think it was 2 at that point.
I mean, guys were hitting driver on that hole too, and it's a back pin, so you can kind of get away with if you do hit in the rough. But also, when you have a lead, like what was Tiger so good at doing is giving himself opportunities to play from the fairway. So like when he had leads, he wouldn't take those chances off the tee to end up in a situation like he did at 10, like you're talking about.
Yeah, Kyle Porter had a great tweet, just saying, Colin Morikawa, he's using Data Golf stats, by far the best player in the world without a win since January 1st of 2024. And just looking at those rankings, the list is Scotty, Xander, Rory, John Rahm, and then Colin. Scotty's won 9 times in that time, Xander twice, Rory 5 times, John Rahm twice, although on live, and then Colin just, he's done just about everything he could do without getting a win, which is, I feel like it's coming.
To answer the gentleman's question about whether he plays too aggressive or doesn't play aggressive enough on Sundays, I would probably tend to disagree, because he's an aggressive iron player, and I don't think he ever takes a shot off when it comes to, hey, if the number's right, he's going to be looking at the pin. Where, for instance, Corey Connors, on the other hand, walking with him the last 18 holes, I thought he played way too conservative. Way too conservative.
And I mean, that's interesting.
Even the day before, I felt like, man, Corey Connors, it's just right there. Sometimes for him, it's just right there for the taking, and it's a little bit different because Morikawa is, I think, when we think about Corey Connors, we think about his ball striking. We think like, oh, he can hold up his ability just to hit fairways, greens, and he just doesn't hit his irons quite as good or as close with the middle and the short irons. But you give him like a 4 or 5 iron, and it's just like right at the hole. But with wedges and stuff yesterday, and even the day before, with shots from like that 140 to 170 range, where a good ball striker is looking somewhere near the pin. And there was so many times that he would bail out 30, 40 feet right with just not trusting whatever shot he saw. And that's another player kind of similar to Russell Henley, where they kind of play similar golf. I think Russell's probably got maybe a little bit more pop, but not too much more. And Corey could be so good. I just think that he lacks a little bit of that aggressiveness on Sunday, really. And this is nothing against the guy. I just think that he's very, very much closer to playing and being a top player if it weren't for just some conservative decision making and just overall just that, like, just give me a little bit of dog on a Sunday, right?
Yeah, go after it.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd rather see him fail, like I'd rather see him fail going after something than playing out to 50 feet on the 8th hole or the left hole location when he's got a 9-iron in his hands. Yeah. It just, like, when he has a left hole location, he should be able to hit it inside of 20 feet with a 9-iron, not to 60 feet. And I know guys, they're not robots, but at times when you watch Corey play, it's very robotic, and it seems like on Sunday it becomes a little less robotic.
I had a question. It's a bit of a tangent off of that, but just in watching this tournament and the way the conditions were, there were just certain pins, and I'm not saying, I think you're making points on Corey that are specific to him, but some pins guys just couldn't go after. As aggressive as you want to be, you cannot hit it there because there's no way it's going to hold the green. Then you're gonna make a huge number and play your way out of it. Well, so maybe comment on that as well. But we hear a lot about guys making these guys undoubtedly have all played on firm, baked out, almost dead greens at Stimp 13, right? So this is not foreign to them. But we heard a lot. There was a whole section on Rory on Sunday where he switched out a bunch of different clubs. He went back to his old drivers and fairway woods. He pulled a 3-iron. He put in a gap wedge. Guys will mess around with different bag configurations, clubs all the time. How often would a guy change a golf ball? Like I guess we just think of a guy plays a ball, and if he's going to change ball, he's going to do rigorous testing and figure it out.
Talk about Rory?
No, any player. Like how? Like would
Might as well get into Rory at this point.
Well, we could do that as well, but I guess my curiosity, based on conversations I have with other guys, is if you're playing a ball that's a low spin option, because you want it to, you spin it too much, or you want to be able to hit it to the hole instead of having to hit it past and bring it back. Would a guy in this type of a situation consider going to a spinnier model than he normally plays because it's so difficult to hold these greens?
Yeah, there were a couple different players this week testing the spinnier version of their manufacturer's golf ball. I saw
Interesting.
A couple guys do that. Just give a little more spin with their middle irons is all they're looking for, and their long irons. Just if you can hold the 14th green with just a little bit more, 500 more RPMs on spin, because that's really all the difference was between being on the back fringe or in the back rough and being on the back of the green putting for birdie. So guys definitely do make that adjustment when it's really firm. I would definitely consider doing it for sure.
So, okay, that's interesting. I guess I didn't know how often ball switches happen. So in situations like this, you'll see that, and then
yeah, soft greens I'll go to our firmer ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Like when it gets in the summer up in Birmingham, I always go to my firmer golf ball just to control my spin with my wedges.
And I had another question on Rory too, because on the topic of that driver switch, and this is a little bit of a mini Sicko Gear Tinker report because I was boots on the ground doing some guerrilla reporting. We talked about I got to go to that shoot around at Boston Common last week, which was so cool. And Rory had both the driver he was using, the new QI35 model, and his old driver with him. And it was just interesting hearing him talk about how aesthetics play a role in making you feel comfortable with what you're playing, right? And I wanted to kind of spin that forward with you as well, where how often in the pro game does just the visual matter more than maybe what the numbers are showing you? Whether that's an offset thing or whether that's the finish of the head on a certain wood. And when you were a player, were there clubs where it's like, I know this is supposed to help my numbers, but I don't like the way it looks, so I can't play this thing?
Well, that's definitely a start. Like it's if you don't like the look of something or you don't like the feel of a club, then it's going to be a non-starter. But when it comes to actually deciding whether to put a club in or to not put a club in, and let's just dive right into the Rory McIlroy stuff because you just kind of brought it up. Rory switched to a spinnier golf ball, and one of the big issues that Rory had last year was that he really struggled with the three-quarter shots. So just bringing the flight down, bringing the spin down, and hitting these controlled, I would say, iron shots. And I think that was part golf swing and part just ability just to kind of trust the shot. And he's always been a guy who's better at hitting a driver than he is hitting a knockdown wedge. When you swing that up on it and swing that into out, that's not conducive necessarily for a three-quarter wedge shot. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. So what Rory tried to do this week, and I'm not saying that this is wrong, but I think why we saw him switch on Sunday back to his original setup is because it is so different than what he had. And I think this is actually a pretty good discussion that we can kind of get into what's more important for Rory. So we're so typical to see Rory first in that off of the tee to green. That's his strength, right? Rory's ability to get it on the green faster than everybody else and further. And so he got the new driver you're talking about. He goes to a 3-wood that flies 300 yards, has a 5-wood that flies 280, and then he has a 3-iron that he had in the bag that would fly 260 yards. And I was watching him hit these 3-irons and the fairway metals too on the range on Tuesday and Wednesday. Dude, he hit 160 club head or ball speed with a 3-iron. Just like unfathomable how hard he was hitting these clubs. And so he's got all these perfect gaps, and like you're wondering to yourself, it's like, what does he really need 3-wood and a 5-wood. You could understand why he would need a 3-iron. So you would have 15 clubs in this scenario. So what does he have to do? He has to take a wedge out of his setup. So he goes from like a 46-degree wedge. So now he has to weaken that tremendously to like a 48, and now has like a 3-wedge system where he goes 48, then he goes, I guess it was 6 degrees of gap, so it'd be 54 and then 60. I think, and I'll let you have the floor here on this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge, huge adjustment. When you look down at a 54 degree versus what he was accustomed to having, which is a 52, probably actually more like a 51 and a 56 degree, the difference in what that looks like to your eye visually, it's tremendous, especially for pitching. A lot of people don't think about that he probably pitches a lot with the 60, but just like long bunker shots, shots he wants to play low, all of those are going to come out in different windows, and that's a huge adjustment period. So wasn't surprised to see him switch back on Sunday to something that he was familiar with, because that is a huge change when we talk about what is almost a month away, which is the first major of the season.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the thing I find most interesting about what you're explaining there, well, a couple things. This is a teaser for our drop this week. Webb Simpson will be the guest this week. Really cool conversation. And just him talking about, I think, one of those final drives he hit the players he won, hitting 160 ball speed. And here we have Rory McIlroy doing it with the 3-iron. I mean, that is just unreal.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. On that topic of Rory, I'm positive that he gets wedge numbers dialed for whatever degree he has. He knows how long 54 goes or 56 goes. If he's making an adjustment from a 46 to a 48, he can figure all that stuff out. But I find the most interesting deciding whether you really need to make sure your superpower is your superpower, or if you're going to sacrifice some of that at the margins to make the weaker part of your game better. And so in this instance, the way you're laying this out, in going to that spinnier golf ball, he goes with a different configuration of the top of the bag that starts to compromise his superpower, his long game, his tee game, right? To the point where he lost strokes, I think, on Saturday. But theoretically, that change is made to help him hit better approach shots with his wedges, which is something he's worked on for a number of years now. And so we're finding that point of delineation. I don't know if you have any other comps of guys like that, but I just find that whole thing fascinating. Just from a golf fan perspective, from an amateur perspective, of trying to figure out how I want to go about playing the game, but just trying to figure out what thing is more important. Because you can go and you have a limited amount of time in the day. Even like you can go practice this thing and try to really shore up a weakness, but if you start not being in as good positions to hit those wedges because you're not hitting as well at the tee, then it's like, what was the sacrifice worth?
I think this one was much more about him wanting to have a club that can fly 300 yards. I think he's kind of convinced himself that 3-wood is a potential, if it's like a change-up pitch, right? He's got a driver that he knows he can hit on par 5s longer than anybody. But where other guys have had, he feels like, advantages against him. So like this next week, the Players' Championship is a perfect example. For Rory, the driver, it can neck up at some places. It really can. So like I think about the 5th hole. I can even think about the 4th hole. You could go on and on with holes out at TPC Sawgrass where driver, if it's a little on the firm side, could start to neck up for his driver. So for him, the 3-wood was a club that he felt like didn't quite go far enough, and other guys were able to hit driver and would have a length advantage on him, where he feels like, I should never be playing a golf course ever where guys are hitting it further than me. So that 3-wood would be able to keep up with most other players' drivers. That's the theory behind it. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind that for next week. But I do think that next week you hit a lot of wedges. You do. You got to be really good at hitting your wedges. And I would say that what's more important, 10 yards off of the tee or Rory being able to hit wedges closer to the pin? I would argue that with how good he is with his one, I would say pitching wedge to 140 to 175, that range, is it going to make that big of a difference whether you're 10 yards closer or further away? I don't think so. I think it's, for me, I think he needs to get back to the 4 wedge setup. I think a player of his length, I think it's more important to be able to hit all of your numbers at the bottom of the bag.
This is interesting, too, just a comment on the topic, and then we should get on to some players' preview. But just Russell Henley, lower ball flies you talked about. Very consistent window, but a lower window. And you have these insanely firm greens. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but I think this whole conversation is probably interesting to a lot of people just to understand the dynamics of ball flight and how equipment makes a difference and how the profile of the ball makes a difference. Any other thoughts you want to add there on how a guy who hits it low but does hit it straight was able to win at this setup this week given the conditions?
Well, that's a great question. I think he did a really good job of keeping the bogeys off the card. I mean, he only made 4 bogeys on the week. That's really freaking impressive, right? So
yeah,
his ability to, keep the bogeys for the most part off of the card, his scrambling statistics were incredible. When he hit it in the, I would call it a little bit of luck too, because the bunkers out at Bay Hill, when you hit it in a bunker, you expect it to plug. It's some of the softest sand they play all year. It's not that it's bad sand. It's just for whatever reason it's soft, and it's a legitimate half-stroke penalty. And he was 5 for 5 out of the bunkers this week. He was first in the strokes gained all around the green category, 17 to 24 around the greens. I mean, listen, when you miss greens, he got up and down. And when you do that and you keep the bogeys off the card, take care of the par 5s, he gave himself a chance. Like, that's his recipe for hard golf courses. Keep bogey avoidance and greens in regulation. When you go back and look at the last 20 years of this event, you go see what are the most important categories, what it takes to win at Bay Hill. It's greens in regulation and bogey avoidance. And really over the last 10 years, 9 out of the last 10 years, you had to be in the top 10 in bogey avoidance and greens in regulation. So I assume that's what he was able to do this week. I can probably give you that little stat real quick to see GIR, what he did. Yeah. He was 48 to 72. Didn't give me a number. I don't know if that. He's got to be top 10, right? Yeah, he's got to be top
10. We could do some quick stats.
4 bogeys is good though. I know that.
Well, and I guess to me that also feels like it's got to be good caddying and good execution too. The latter of which we know he's phenomenal at. But I mean, you're to a certain point. It's almost like what you're talking about with Corey Connors, like certain pins he doesn't go for because of his ball flight and shot shape. And same thing with Russ, where if a green's set up a certain way, you're expecting it to roll out X amount of feet, which is, I don't know, 30% further than you would expect on normal Bermuda greens that aren't this baked out or whatever it is. So which pins do I have enough room to land it short and kind of run it up to? And which ones do we have to say, hey, we just got to land on the fat of the green, hope it holds, and then 2-putt and walk away with our par?
I mean, he's a really cerebral player. I know I kind of mentioned that earlier, but he's smart, man. Like, he's played a lot of high-level golf in a lot of places. They know how to get around a golf course, and he plays his game. He doesn't deviate from it. But what I like about Russell is he understands time and score better than some other players, and he's kind of come across as a little nervy on Sundays at times, whether that's with missing some short putts or, just all of a sudden falling flat out on his face and you don't really know what happened, like he did last week at the Cognizant, and you just feel like, oh man, he was right there. It felt like he was going to win this tournament. Winning's hard. You feel the nerves, and sometimes it's hard to, especially when your belief in yourself goes up and you feel like you should win and you should be winning more. That's when you put more pressure on yourself. That's when you start to look ahead. And I wouldn't say Colin Morikawa is dealing with that at all. I think he's had a little bit case of the bad luck.
Oh,
I mean, the fact that he was leading this thing all Sunday and then gets to 17 and somehow it's one back. It was tough. It puts a tough pill to swallow.
Smiley, I can't believe we waited this long on the show and we almost have to pass over. I want to have an extended discussion about Keegan Bradley and a Ryder Cup implications, and maybe when we get past the players, we can unpack it a little deeper. But how about Keegan gains almost 6 strokes tee to green on Sunday with that 64? A little more than 4 of those strokes were gained via approach. Amazing iron play. Set a new 9-hole scoring record
Unreal,
at
dude,
the
right?
API, 29 in the front. And gained a stroke and a half putting on Sunday, which was, a little eyeball emoji back on Charlie's one and done dissertation where we were talking about getting back to the Bermuda Greens. So great playing from Keegan.
Dude, on fire.
Unreal.
On fire. That's a huge week for him from a point standpoint. I still think that Keegan Bradley, whether he likes it or not, I think players at the end of this year, with how well he's playing, I know he is adamant on having to qualify for points, but it just seems like you want him playing, it's just the way he plays. I know he can inspire guys with his voice, but he can also do it with his clubs too, whether he just plays, only 2 matches. That could be enough for me I just want to see him play, honestly. I'd love to see him play captain.
I'll tell you what, it's another tweet from Kyle Porter, who earns a producer credit on the show at this point, is just looking at locks or feel like these guys are close to locks for Bethpage. And his list is Scotty, Colin, Patrick Cantlay, JT, Xander, Bryson, and now Russell Henley. And boy, are there some intriguing names. I'm not going straight down the list here, but guys that I just am so intrigued about. Keegan's, of course, one of them, whether he'll be a playing captain. But Michael Kim playing exceptionally good golf. Maverick McNeely.
Dude, we got to get him in the majors first. Like, I'm like all in on the names you're about to say, but they have to qualify for the majors.
Yeah, right. To earn, well, I guess for a number of reasons. One, to see him in high leverage, high pressure situations, but also if they want to automatically qualify, that's how you do it. But I mean, Michael Kim now is 52nd in the world. How about 24th in the Data Golf rankings? The Data Golf loves Michael Kim.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to get Michael in the top 50. That's a start.
Yep.
So like before we got to talking about him for sure. I think Maverick McNeely's he's top 50, right?
He is 15th in the world, 27th in the Data
Holy
Golf rankings.
moly, he's 15th in the world?
Yes.
What?
The OWGR is a fascinating look right now. I mean, the guys I have on this list, it's such an interesting spread, depending on how it's being tabulated. But Mav,
he's got a big major season coming, man, right? Yeah. Big major season.
Huge. Yeah, Mav dropped. He was 12th last week. Dropped 3 spots to 15th.
Holy moly.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a guy like Wyndham Clark, 8th in the world, but played great this week, but 43rd in Data Golf rankings, 13th in the points list for the Ryder Cup. I think Daniel Berger, now 42nd in the world, is going to be a fascinating case study as to a guy that has Ryder Cup experience, but essentially went dark for 10 plus months, but a whole year in between Whistling Straits and where we are now, but playing great golf.
Here's a topic.
Okay.
Is this the grossest top 25 in the world of all time?
Okay, let me pull it back up. I mean, it's very. I'll tell you what's wild to me is just seeing some of the movement. It's okay. Scotty 1, Rory 2, Xander 3.
No issues in the top 6.
Ludwig down to 5, and Ludwig is lost more ground the Data Golf rankings. That's another one that if we have more time to unpack, I can't make any sense of his season. Of like playing exceptionally well or just Saturday from Ludwig. I just did not understand at all. Hideki at 6, Russell at 7, Wyndham at 8, JT at 9, Tommy Fleetwood at 10. I'll tell you what's amazing is Tyrrell Hatton maintaining his position via wins on the DP World Tour at 12.
Yeah, that's even more impressive. The fact that he stayed inside. I mean, because John Rahm's not there. Where's he?
He's like 53rd or something.
That just gives you it just shows you how well Tyrrell Hatton's played.
Or worse, 59th now. Yeah, I mean, Tyrrell's done a good job. It's a strange, the OWGR, as we've documented on the show, it's not necessarily reflective, but it is also important because it's a criteria used by many majors to do invitations. So
yeah.
Okay, we should talk about players. I know you have to go.
Mhm.
I'm just going to transition out of this section, just hit some other winners. Carl Phillips in the opposite field event, Puerto Rico Open, wins in just
There
his
you go.
fourth start
Saturday
on the PGA
Red.
Tour.
Sunday Red, sorry.
Saturday Red's like, when you go to like one of those knockoff markets, like you order it on Temu and you get the
That's
Saturday
right.
Red
That's right.
full. Yeah. Big ups to him. How about over Liv? Sergio wins. Phil finishes tied for third. His best ever finish on Liv. Big win for the YouTube golf scenes. Got a couple of nuggets from our guy, Sean Laurie. John Rahm's finished top 10 in every Liv event he's ever completed. Here's another one. Tom McKibben, 2 top 10s in 3 events thus far for Legion 13. And DJ finished DFL this week. He did shoot 6 under on the final day to salvage a 1 over for the tournament finish, but DFL for DJ. So,
Dude, it kind of makes you sad, doesn't it?
it does make me a little bit sad.
He just doesn't care anymore.
He's 40 now. He's made a lot of money, and he's won a lot of golf tournaments. And I think at a certain point, I don't begrudge a man who says, I'm just good to cash a check and just play some golf. But that's kind of what it feels like, doesn't it?
Gosh, man.
And in the
I'm such a DJ fan, too, right? Like,
totally.
he hadn't said anything during all this. He's just, all right.
He's chilling. I mean, in some ways, he's content to fly under the radar. And that's
I would be all in on Liv at some point saying, you know what, DJ, your playing career is not cutting it out. Let's get you in the broadcast. Can you imagine listening to DJ on the broadcast? Yeah. That was a pretty good shot. For like 4 hours. Can you imagine?
they just watch on mute. We'll just close caption in what DJ should be saying, because if you turn on the volume, there won't be anything to hear. Just the toughest of scenes. Yeah, I don't think he's going the Pat Perez, rumored Bubba Watson Phil route over there. He's just gonna kind of go hang out on a boat for a while. So whenever he's done, and then here's my big segue. The last event we're gonna hit is the Hate. I think I'm saying this right. At Sawgrass Country Club, little college golf for you. My guy David Ford, he's at 10 under, 1 shot lead heading into the final day. I think he tees off in about an hour here.
I've played the Hate.
Alabama's Jonathan Grizz trails by a shot in second, and the Crimson Tide holding a 7-shot lead over Virginia in the team competition. So that's moving us over in the direction of Sawgrass. Let's talk players, Smiley.
So
Where should we start? Because here I've got outright odds for the favorite tier, the second tier, and the third tier. But also, and this is a little bit of a preview for our conversation tomorrow, just talking about Sawgrass in general and whether you like this tournament better, this course better in March or in May. Many feel like they just like the way it played better when it was Bermuda in May. But as you've noted in past years, the overseed in March, it's a lot of Augusta National comparisons. It definitely looks pretty good. So maybe just like set the scene there and let's talk about who we like heading into this event.
Well, they're getting absolutely dumped on yesterday and today. So that is not great as far as wanting firm conditions. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be green. It's going to play soft. Last year, I think they got some rain before that Thursday round, and I can't remember who it was, but I felt like somebody was going to go out and try to shoot a course record, and I think somebody did. Didn't somebody do that? Does that sound
Course
right?
record last year?
Do you remember that? I was saying like somebody
yeah.
might shoot a course
Yeah.
record, and I can't remember who did it.
Was that Tom Hoagie? Maybe? I think
Maybe. I don't know.
Hold on a sec. I want to say I'm right. Tom Hoagie players scoring record. Didn't spell scoring right. That's okay. No immediate. Oh yeah. No wait. Yes. 10 under 62.
Yeah.
Maybe that was last year in 23. I don't know.
Who cares?
Close enough. On we go.
All you need to know is I think it's really pretty. It's beautiful. We're gonna have good weather. It's gonna be windy, which is great. I think that's a huge plus to add to the 17th and the drama. Saturday's supposed to blow like 20 to 30. So as long as the wind can maybe dry out the place, I think it's a lot of fun when you get a windy TPC Sawgrass. Now, it's fun when players have like all these options when it was firm in May, but as long as the wind's blowing, I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, I think those have been some of the most interesting players we've seen in recent years. It's the shot that I reference far too often, but the JT 200 yards saw 5 wood into 18 sawgrass, and that ridiculous day where guys were laughing at the wind on 17. Just there was not a club you could hit and land it on that green. That always makes for good viewing. So let's hope it firms up a little bit as we kind of head into the actual tournament. But I got some. Let me hit you with some tiers here, okay? So here's the favorite section, and these are everyone's 20-1 and shorter. So we'll start, of course, with Scotty opening as a favorite, plus 450. Then we have Rory at 7-1, Ludwig at 14-1, Colin Morikawa at 16-1, JT at 18-1, and Xander also at 18-1. What at first glance, who we like in there? Anyone you feel like is underpriced? It feels like really. I don't think this guy's getting enough love.
Gosh, it's always struggle with that this top guys.
Kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I think when I think about this golf course this week and what the leaderboard is kind of given us over the years, typically it's a hodgepodge leaderboard. It's more about form than anything. Like, well, I guess really even too, like you'll have guys coming in with playing well and play poorly, and you'll have guys that are playing poorly coming in and play well. It's just, can you hit the shots out there? Can you drive it in play? And then from there, can you hit, iron shots into small targets, especially when the wind comes up.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued to see what we get from Ludwig this week. I mean, obviously love the guy, but it's just such an interesting, as I kind of talked a little bit about earlier, ties for 5th the century, comes out of the gate super hot at Farmers, gets sick, falls off the pace, withdraws the following week at AT&T, same sickness, goes back to Torrey, wins the Genesis, and then 77 on Saturday at Bay Hill. The weirdest part of that to me was he lost, more than 4.5 shots, strokes gain approach. And just that's so uncharacteristic for him. So I don't know, if there's anything there that for your eye test, you're like, it's this or that, or if it's just kind of guys have off weeks and you try again next week.
Yeah. Were you talking about Scotty?
Ludwig.
Oh, you're talking about Ludwig. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was sitting here reading this bottom ticker thing that you got.
You like this little ticker action going on?
Yeah,
ticker's very distracting.
There's a lot to like about Ludwig this week. A ton.
Really?
I really do think that a player that lives in the area now, spends a lot of time playing TPC Sawgrass, probably very comfortable playing that golf course. Ludwig's going to be a very popular player this week to take. Scotty, we didn't really talk about him at Bay Hill. Poor putting week.
Yeah.
But hit it well. He was first tee to green, and that's something that you got to see. It's like, all right, ball striking. Even watching him last week, the ball striking didn't feel like it's quite back yet, and he still was first in that category. You're like, okay, he's just give him a second here. We got to get him going here. Got off to a little bit of a slow start last week, but all it takes is one good round to start kind of getting him going again. It feels like he's still playing his way into shape. So I think Scotty, Rory, JT, I think those guys are going to have good weeks. Rory's swinging it really nice. Ludwig playing well, but I kind of talk about this hodgepodge leaderboard, and you kind of feel like who's going to play poorly of these top guys. And last year you kind of saw a leaderboard that showed that, hey, these are the guys that were playing really well and then coming in and played well. So maybe this whole theory of TPC Sawgrass and trying to predict who's going to play well, maybe we're heading out of that. I don't know.
There is a variety. I'm sure there are other courses that I'm missing, but this one it definitely has to be in that top tier of courses that don't favor a certain style of golf.
No, you could be short and play well. You can be a very good long iron player, be in your strength and play well. You could be a great putter, or you could be a poor putter and have just a streaky week. A lot of ways to do it out here.
We're now tickering what I'm calling Tier 2, which is the guys that fall between 20-1 and 40-1. So that's Hideki at 22-1, Cantlay 22-1, Henley 29-1, Shane Lowry 29-1, Tommy Fleetwood 29-1, Sam Burns at 33-1, and Sung Jae M at 37-1. This is where maybe there's a little more of a value play option here. Anyone that pops from this section?
Yeah, only one, Shane Lowry, but the other
Yeah.
two would be, they're not in this section, would be Corey Connors and Brian Harmon. Harmon plays this golf course really well. He looks, just watching him swing some last week, I'm like, man, he's swinging the golf club well. He's going to a place he really likes with players. Shane just kind of ran out of gas on the weekend. We'll see if he's played a lot lately, so I'm interested to see if he kind of runs out of steam at Sawgrass. I think there's some players that are fresh, like Colin Morikawa. I know I'm just going back to sorry, I'm skipping tiers here on you. But Colin, this is going to be his first back-to-back week this year. He was sick on the West Coast talking to his team. And so they're excited to kind of get into a stretch where they're playing more. And it's felt that way this season. We haven't had all the guys playing against each other. This is the first week, last week at Bay Hill. And really Xander's rusty, Scotty's like kind of playing his way into shape. So I'm excited to see this next week with guys having a week underneath their belt and going to the players where Scotty's played a little bit. You know, Colin's now going 2 weeks in a row. Xander's playing his second week in a row. Ludwig is now playing his second week in a row. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really good players. The weather forecast looks fun, looks windy, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'll just really quickly just flash this tier 3 up there because you hit a few names in here. Corey Connors is 45 to 1.
Sepp is tier 3. We're
Sepp's,
talking.
Yeah, this is 41 to 51. Sepp is like
Sepp
41.
would not surprise me if he won. Like Sepp, Corey Connors, like I think those are two guys that are going to be up there. Keegan wouldn't surprise me, like if he was up there and played well too. Wyndham's kind of a little all over the place. Like you don't know what he's going to get. Tom Kim's, I don't know how good he's playing.
Man. Yeah, I just
Boog, he's playing
Boog,
good.
It's one of these weeks. It's gonna happen.
Tier 3, I like the guys in tier 3 more than tier 2.
Yeah, and maybe these things move. Maybe the smiley effect. We get some new odds making coming out of the show today. But yeah, there are some interesting names. I think that's well said. Of just
you got any flyers that come to my head?
Like dark horse guys.
Yeah, I got
this?
one that comes to mind that for me.
Oh man, okay, you go first. Let me think about that a little bit.
I kind of like a player that's been a long shot at this event and played well. Doug Gim.
Oh, okay.
Doug Gim. Just a random long shot name that people probably.
He's 110 to 1.
Yeah. Another one would be Andrew Novak.
He's had some good weeks this year. I like that a lot. I mean, if we're going like 100 to 1 and beyond, well, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at Michael Kim, 110 to 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that a lot. So
I do too. Oh, I like this Mangunian mansion, Seabez.
Seabez.
The only thing I worry about is that it's maybe not quite
Don't know if we spelled that
fast
right,
enough for Bazane out, but he had a good week last week. That was one of my guys I suggested.
Yeah. Well, look, I know we got to wrap here soon. We've got a few housekeeping items on the way out. I'm continue being roasted over my lack of facial hair. Marcus, sorry about your second wife and the fact she got a Karen cut. I think we're going to have to bring the beard back, but thank you for your unkind words. We're all working on it. And then, Smiley, a lot of people clamoring across multiple platforms here and I got to find it in here. Here it is. They want an update on the Orlando airport scene yesterday. What do you got for us?
I got there an hour before my flight, like with my bags and all, to try to make a Delta 745 flight. And I show up to a picture of a nightmare. I mean, it was 100 deep.
Did not look great.
For like 3 different lines. So there was like no good line option. Like Sky Priority was just as long as another lane. And so it just stunk because Delta normally is like so reliable. And it just was so bad. Oh my gosh. Other than that, luckily that morning I booked a backup flight on Southwest. And that was an 11 o'clock flight. And I was going to take a 7:45 flight, connect through Atlanta, get home like an hour and a half earlier. But our flight that I missed, Kiz was on it. He said we took off 50 minutes late, and I would have been lucky to make that flight in Atlanta. So it kind of worked out that I missed a flight. So thank you, Delta.
Hey, thanks, Delta. All's well that ends well. Yeah, that picture you took was instant cold sweats just looking at that entire scene. So I think that's it, Smiley. I'm pumped for Players Week. You're going to be on the ground. We're excited to get some one and done pics on Instagram Live from the scene once we get a feel for the conditions and all that stuff. And then we have Webb Simpson in the feed on Wednesday, which very excited about that conversation. So
Yeah, definitely. He's I could talk to him about
anything.
for hours, man. Like I could have kept going and going and going. He's so thoughtful. I think is probably the best way to describe like how he is in a hour setting of a podcast. He gives every question such a attention to detail, and I always like playing with him when him and Paul Tesori were together. Just listening to those two go back and forth and chat away, it was fun. We talked players, his win in 2019, and about what it was like that week for him and his whole career. I mean, I think a lot of people are gonna like this episode.
I think there's a ton of, to your point, a ton of rich perspective the web provides of just, on all sorts of topics. And so we're excited for y'all to check that one out. And we, of course, appreciate y'all spending the time today hanging out with us, commenting. So look out for that episode in the feed on Wednesdays. Make sure you join us on Instagram Live, also on Wednesday for one and done picks. And then enjoy the players. We'll talk to y'all very, very soon.